Going places, text reading. About the author. A.R. Barton is a modern writer who lives in Zurich and writes in English. In his story, Going Places, Barton explores the theme of adolescent fantasizing and hero worship. Let's start with the text now. When I leave, Sophie said, coming home from school, I'm going to have a boutique. Jancy, linking arms with Sophie along the street, looked doubtful. Takes money, Soph, something like that. I will find it, Sophie said, staring far down the street. Take you a long time to save that much, Jancy said. Well, I'll be a manager then. Yes, of course, to begin with, till I have got enough. But anyway, I know just how it is all going to look. They would not make you manager straight off, Soph, Jancy said. I'll be like Mary Quant. Mary was a British fashion designer, let me tell you, students. She lived from 1930 to 2023. So Sophie said, I'll be like Mary Quant. I'll be a natural. They will see it from the start. I will have the most amazing shop this city has ever seen. Jancy, knowing they were both earmarked or designated for the biscuit factory, became melancholy or sad. Jancy wished Sophie would not say these things. When they reached Sophie Street, Jancy said, It is only a few months away now, Soph. You really should be sensible. They don't pay well for shop work. You know that. Your dad would never allow it. Sophie said, Or an actress? Now there is real money in that. Yes, and I could maybe have the boutique on the side. Actresses don't work full-time, do they? Anyway, that or a fashion designer, something a bit sophisticated. And she turned in through the open street door, leaving Jancy standing in the rain. If ever I come into money, I will buy a boutique, Sophie continued. Oh, if you ever come into money, you will buy us a blessed, decent house to live in. Thank you very much. These words were spoken by Sophie's father. Sophie's father was scooping or lifting shepherd's pie into his mouth as hard as he could go. His plump face still grimy or dirty and sweat marked from the day. She thinks money grows on trees, don't she, Dad? Said little Derek, Sophie's younger brother, hanging on the back of his father's chair. Their mother sighed. Sophie watched her mother's back, stooped over the sink, and wondered at the incongruity or incompatibility of the delicate bow which fastened upon her apron strings, the delicate-seeming bow and the crooked back. The evening had already blacked in the windows, and the small room was steamy from the stove and cluttered with a heavy-breathing man in his vest at the table and the dirty washing piled up in the corner. Sophie felt a tightening in her throat. She went to look for her elder brother Geoff. Geoff was kneeling on the floor in the next room, tinkering or repairing with a part of his motorcycle over some newspaper spread on the carpet. Geoff was 3 years out of school, an apprentice mechanic traveling to his work each day to the far side of the city. Geoff was almost grown up now, and Sophie suspected areas of his life about which she knew nothing, about which he never spoke. He said little at all, ever voluntarily. Words had to be prized out of Geoff, just like stones out of the ground. And Sophie was jealous of Geoff's silence. When he wasn't speaking, it was as though he was away somewhere, out there in the world, in those places she had never been. Whether they were only for the outlying districts or the far districts of the city, or places beyond in the surrounding country, who knew? They attained a special fascination simply because they were unknown to Sophie and remained out of her reach. Perhaps there were also people, exotic, interesting people, of whom Geoff never spoke. It was possible, though he was quiet and didn't make new friends easily. Sophie longed to know them. She wished she could be admitted more deeply into her brother's affections, and that someday he might take her with him. Though their father forbade it or did not allow it, and Geoff had never expressed an opinion, Sophie knew he thought her too young, and she was impatient. She was conscious of a vast world out there waiting for her, and she knew instinctively that she would feel as at home there as in the city which had always been her home. It expectantly awaited her arrival. Sophie saw herself riding on a bike there behind Geoff. He wore new, shining black leathers, and she a yellow dress with a kind of cape or clothing that flew out behind. There was the sound of applause as the world rose to greet them. Geoff sat frowning at the oily component he cradled or held in his hands, as though it were a small dumb animal, and he was willing it to speak. "I met Danny Casey," Sophie said. Danny Casey is an Irish footballer who's born in the year 1997. Okay, students, let's move on. Geoff looked around abruptly. Where? In the arcade. Funnily enough, arcade is the marketplace. "It is never true," Geoff said. "I did, too." You told Dad?" Geoff asked. Sophie shook her head, chastened or humbled at his unawareness that he was always the first to share her secrets. "I don't believe it," Geoff said. "There I was looking at the clothes in Royce's window when someone came and stood beside me, and I looked around, and who should it be but Danny Casey?" "All right, what does he look like?" "Oh, come on, you know what he looks like." "Close to, I mean," Geoff said. "Well," Sophie said, "he has green eyes, gentle eyes, and he's not so tall as you would think." She wondered if she should say about his teeth, but decided against it. Their father at that time had washed when he came in, and his face and arms were shiny and pink, and he smelled of soap. Their father switched on the television, tossed one of little Derek's shoes from his chair onto the sofa, and sat down with a grunt or a short, low sound. "Sophie met Danny Casey," Geoff said. Sophie wriggled or quickly moved where she was sitting at the table. Her father turned his head on his thick neck to look at her. Her expression was one of disdain or scorn. "It is true," Geoff said. "I once knew a man who had known Tom Finney, the English soccer player," his father said reverently or respectfully to the television. "But that was a long time ago." "You told us," Geoff said. "Casey might be that good someday," father said. "Better than that. Even he's the best. If he keeps his head on his shoulders, if they look after him properly. A lot of distractions for a youngster in the games these days," their father said. "He'll be all right. He's with the best team in the country." "He's very young yet." "He's older than I am." "Too young really for the first team." You can't argue with that sort of ability. All this conversation is between father and dad. Remember this. "He's going to buy a shop," Sophie said from the table. Her father grimaced or angered. "Where did you hear that?" "He told me so." Sophie's father muttered something inaudible and dragged himself round in his chair. "This another of your wild stories," he said. "She met him in the arcade," Geoff said, and told him how it had been. "One of these days you're going to talk yourself into a lot of trouble," her father said aggressively. "Geoff knows it is true, don't you, Geoff?" Sophie asked. "He don't believe you, though he would like to," father said. With this, we are done with part 1. For part 2 of text reading of this chapter, please follow my upcoming video. Thank you.